Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Safety Brief, the show where we pull back the curtain on the threats, tactics, and tools shaping the world of cybersecurity. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and today we're hitting a topic that still causes more breaches than about anything else: the inbox. Yes, even in 2025, emails are still one of the number one attack vectors in cybersecurity. So, why hasn't this changed? Haven't we solved this by now? That's exactly what we're digging into today in Inbox Infiltration. I'm joined again by our resident experts, Mike and Matt. Always great to have you both here. Thank you so much. All
Yeah,
right,
thanks
so
for having
let's Of course. All right, so let's dive in here. Like I said, you'd think with all the advancements, AI filters, behavioral analysis, sandboxing, and so on, attackers would have moved on from email, right? But no, like I said, it's still one of the top attack vectors. Why? Short answer is because it works. But Mike and Matt, can you go a little deeper into this?
Yeah, most definitely. So, shout out to Matt. He joined me on the road last week, so it was a good time. Crazy to think that was last week. It's a lot happened so weird. But
No, I'm
uh,
still recovering. I can tell you it was absolutely last week.
yeah, no, we were in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Matt flew home west. I flew north to Chicago and drove home. So it's
Turn your mic
crazy
up.
week. But yes, boss.
There you
Um,
go.
but uh,
Sounds a lot better.
But yeah, why does this work? So what I would say is ultimately there's a couple of things in play. One, there's always some, I'd say, proportional percentage between social engineering and email technology that's being leveraged in these attacks. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's 70-30, sometimes it's 50-50, sometimes it's just a straight up bug or hole in Microsoft's Office 365 architecture that may not be interpreted as a bug, but it's a loophole maybe by threat actors. And so one example we can give is like phishing calendar scams, where a threat actor will send a what is a calendar invite to an inbox, could be a shared mailbox, could be a user's mailbox, and maybe sometimes they have those invites to auto accept if the calendar slot is open. And that's where it's a loophole that threat actors are using, that this exchange can happen regardless of a user taking explicit manual action. But again, that's one example. But ultimately, what it comes down to is they're constantly as bad guys flipping the script on features, new features that are coming out, older features within SharePoint or maybe new features within OneDrive, and finding ways to whittle their way in. Right, ever so crafty, ever so sneaky, they are. Can't fault them for their innovation.
In many cases, they don't even have to innovate. They just have to send an email, and people are bad enough to click on it.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's also important to remember that filters miss things and users are human, right? And, thinking back, these aren't your grandma's Nigerian prince emails anymore. They're not that
Right.
obvious. We're talking
Dude still owes me
realistic
money.
invoices. We're talking realistic invoices, event invites with QR codes, even AI crafted messages that mimic your writing style or even maybe your voice. It's a lot smarter, sneakier, and way more convincing nowadays. So, Mike, Matt, can you break down how phishing has evolved over the past couple of years?
I mean, honestly, phishing has really only evolved because people have gotten smarter with how to use the different link methods. Creating links that look way more realistic than what they were. Domain squatting, which I mean, that falls on companies for being bad and not realizing that they have stuff that's just sitting there.
Yeah,
But ultimately, AI is allowing people to not sound like they're a potato, if you really want to be technical.
no,
When
I
you get an
agree with
email that
that.
says, all your stuff is Ben, I'm sorry, but if you can't properly convey yourself via an email, I'm not going to believe it. I had somebody, and I was searching through extremely old backups. I found an email that I saved, and it said, "Your account is been closed." And I legitimately responded back and said, "I'm sorry, but if you're not smart enough to use the proper context, I'm not going to believe that you're actually closing my account." So that's what AI does. It gives you the ability to write like yourself, which is bad, and then put it into a large language model and say, make this sound like it came from X country.
Yeah.
Right.
So it puts it into their dialect, it uses their terminology, their slang, everything that you would want it to actually have in there. All nomenclature is, normalized. So they get an email and it looks as though it was sent from Steve down the street, not Steve that's, over in Nigeria that's pretending to work in Wichita. You know?
No, and I completely agree with that. I'm glad you brought that up because, we actually released a blog, I believe, last week, The Death of Script Kiddies, kind of explaining how AI has given these script kiddies or non, educated scammers, a tool to utilize to sound more real, to have more knowledge and power when it comes to attacks. I think the bottom line is phishing has leveled up along with AI, and unfortunately, many traditional email defenses haven't kept up that pace. Um, and I think things can really get serious because most email security is reactive. If it flags something after it's already opened or clicked, it doesn't do anything for you. It's already on the endpoint. But preemptive email security, like what we use at Blockworks, stop threats before they even hit your inbox, like analyzing sender behavior, spotting impersonation patterns, and
Mm-hmm.
blocking risky content right out of the gate, meaning it never hits your inbox at all. So, with that, Mike, Matt, how would you describe the real difference between traditional emails tools and what we do here at Blockworks?
Yeah, I mean, and again, to those listening either live or catching the recording after, if you're not already aware, there is a large push into the preemptive cybersecurity space. And when we say push, meaning what we as Blockworks were talking about and traveling and, and educating our partners on for, I'd say, the past 6 or 7 years has been a prevention centric model of methodology around
Yeah.
cybersecurity. Now, this isn't saying we're not here reinventing the NIST seven stages in the attack lifecycle, right? That's not what we're doing. What we're saying is that there is a couple of things that are true. Number one, prevention is possible for the majority of attacks. It is possible to prevent email-based, endpoint-based, network-based attacks with the right controls and purview, obviously held in tandem to each other. Can't just deploy a tool and hope it does its job. You can't just throw people at a technology problem, right? You need both. But not only that prevention is possible, but that it's actually better return on investment and more cost efficient in the long run, right? So we've been saying this for, I'd say, 8 years now, if not longer. But now what Gartner has kind of come out and recognized as a vertical in the cybersecurity space is preemptive, which potato, right? So prevention centric, preemptive, long
Same
story
thing.
short, all that really matters is that the dwell time is near zero. Dwell time meaning how long is their threat posed, looking at a vulnerability where it could be exploited, and how do we minimize that time, right? On the endpoint, it's sub 20 milliseconds. Within an email architecture that we currently leverage, it's all pre-delivery, pre-inbox, so it's all before the email arrives in the user's mailbox. And so what we've seen is one of two problems. Either the speed of which email security, meaning emails go through this metaphorical car wash, as a easy to understand visual. They go through this metaphorical car wash, and they aren't scanned until after delivery. So the email arrives in the user's mailbox, and then it is scanned. They go through this car wash after post-delivery scanning. What we leverage is pre-delivery scanning, meaning nothing lands in the mailbox of the user until it is scanned, right? So we move that car wash before the delivery happens of that email. And so rather than, you metaphorically walking out to your mailbox, taking all the junk mail and all the other whatever we get in our mailboxes nowadays, and then coming inside and filtering it, it actually is filtered before it is put in the mailbox, right? And so what I would say is, where tools constantly or current solutions fall down is either the misclassification of it, they just let bad email waltz right through, or the speed at which it is bad, it recognizes it as bad, but it's not pre-delivery. It's noticing it way after the fact. And so those are going to be the two common Achilles heels that we've seen from partners that have come on board to us and the solutions they've used previously. Is again, it's either the speed of the tool is not quick enough to catch it before a user clicks or accepts a calendar invite, et cetera, or the tool simply isn't able to classify it. It's a QR code. It's so well crafted by AI, it doesn't stand out, right? And so I'd say those are the two common problems faced.
That makes sense. Anything from you, Matt, on this one? Huh? All right. Well, another thing is that email security isn't just a filter that you can turn on and walk away from, right? We see a lot of people in that set it and forget it mentality in cybersecurity. So let's break it down a little bit. How does Blockworks take a different approach in the sense of not trusting the tool and setting and forgetting? What makes the Blockworks SOC kind of special in the sense when it comes to our email security?
Yeah, I'd say comically, if there's anybody that knows the tools aren't infallible, it's us, because of how much time we spend configuring, reconfiguring, interacting with, uh, finding out that there's a new feature the moment it's released. Right, change management sometimes for some vendors seems to be an afterthought or a thing of the past. But regardless, I think ultimately, because it's such a rapidly evolving space, because there's so much innovation happening, you really need to be Johnny on the spot with these updated terms, updated licenses, updated feature sets, right? Because it's such a, again, it would be one thing to statically secure any kind of environment, right? A deadbolt on a door has worked for a long time. The size of the doors aren't changing, the size of the locks aren't changing, the length or the size of the deadbolt itself into the door stop or the door jamb isn't changing. None of that's changing. So now what you get is a really simple way to go shopping for a door lock. You can say, hey, do I want something that's key coded? Do you want something that syncs with Apple HomeKit? Do you want just a plain old lock and key? It's very simple. When we talk about how quick Microsoft is innovating Office 365 with Copilot and other things that they're adding, and then we talk about how many different email security solutions are out there, and then we talk about those tools evolving into how they're able to prevent different kinds of attacks. It is not enough to just throw a tool at a problem when it comes to cybersecurity today. Because again, the size of the door is changing, the size of the door jamb is changing, the size, right? Like the doorknob size is changing. There's so much rate of change that you really can't afford within a scope of risk to throw a tool at a problem and say, I have a high amount of certainty that that risk is mitigated. Certainly, something is better than nothing if you don't have a fully staffed team, if you're a one-man show. We get it, we see it, we interact with it often. So it's all about percentage of risk mitigated. But if you're really looking for a high level of certainty, looking to sleep well at night, not staff 8 to 12 people 24 hours and monitor it yourself, you really do need a sweet medium of tool, innovative, cutting edge, bleeding edge in all forms, and team to catch that tool as it innovates and catch threats as they innovate. Because again, there's so much rate of change, and it's, a lot of people see cybersecurity as there's a new marketing buzzword and it's just another way to profit or sell. Certainly so, sometimes. But ultimately, the rate of change in this industry is unprecedented compared to anything else, really, as any other vertical. And so because of that, it makes it difficult to really keep our arms around one thing and say we're confident in that one thing for very long before some threat actor finds a new hole, Microsoft releases a new feature with a hole in it. Both of those things happen, and the threat actor finds that hole and now exploits it. Or, again, a lot of rate of change.
How dare you insinuate that the large vendor from down south telling me that all I need is throw a bunch of programs at stuff and I'll be safe would be lying to me.
I wish it was that easy.
Rude.
I genuinely do.
We proved that last week that I don't care what vendor you are, don't make asinine claims or we will prove you wrong.
Yeah, I also think that the human element is super important, right? How many times do emails come in or alerts come in and our team looks into it and digs into it and sees that, it's a false positive. There's no need to alert the MSP or end user. So I think it really takes that human element. We've got, this like you said, Mike, the cutting edge, but we also have a team who's monitoring and digging into things. So you're getting less alerts. So you're not getting that alert fatigue. But I think that human element, that human validation is always going to be needed. Now, let's talk a little bit about some red flags. How do you know your current setup isn't enough? Are phishing emails still getting through? Are your users clicking things that they shouldn't be? Do you even know if someone tried to spoof your CEO last
Oh,
week?
I know the answer to this one. I know the answer to this one. You got fished. That's how you know
Yeah.
it doesn't work. Uh, I mean, honestly, there are so many different ways that you can bypass or try to bypass email security that people have to just be aware. They have to be cognizant. Is your CEO emailing you at 3 in the morning asking you to go get gift cards for a meeting that they are having in the morning? Probably not. Most CEOs do not message, underlings at 3 in the morning.
I
They
don't
have an
know.
now they have an assistant for that. That's what the assistant is there for. They help out, they take care of all of that. No, they are not going to text you and ask you to do things outside of normal company communications. The biggest thing that people don't pay attention to are the context clues within emails that come in if they do get through the filters.
Yeah.
And it's no fault of their own. Some of these are designed to be extremely intelligent and bypass the filters. Microsoft gives the capability, and again, way to go, Microsoft, you total and utter geniuses, that you can actually receive email from domains that were created mere hours ago. Spam
Love
emails from
that.
domains that are created mere hours before they started bombing people with emails. There is no prevention on their side for that. They just sit there and look at it and go, well, it's an email address. Yeah, thank you. That it is. But there needs to be a little bit more looking at the pedigree of the email address. Was it just created, 2 hours ago? If yes, why the hell is it sending out emails to 10,000 people? That's not normal behavior. It should not be sending out things to multiple different domains either. If you create an email 2 hours ago, the chance of you having, well, even having 10,000 contacts is going to be slim to none. But having them and being ready to send them out that quickly, you're either a marketing genius that just started with their own company, their own email, whatever, or you're trying to fish people.
Yeah.
The phishing is way more logical than somebody that, started their own marketing company and was just blasting everybody right at once. So there's a
Yeah.
lot that people still need to look at. And it comes down to the human element. Now, the other thing is a lot of the AI that's being used in these programs, and we talked about this last week, um, that AI is only as good as the data that it's being provided. We as security professionals, in the large scheme of things, are not that good. I've seen a lot of very questionable practices that people say, yeah, that's fine. We can go ahead and let that happen. That gets trained into models, and people wonder why things get missed. If you get a phishing email and you permit it and say, yeah, this is good, we're good, fam, let that through. Well, then it's going to look at that and say, well, we saw this before and it was permitted. So, let's take that into account in the new data run that we're training the AI on. All you're doing is polluting the overall source of the data that you're feeding. So you're getting tainted models that then start to hallucinate. That hallucination lets things through. Then what's your last line of defense? The user. How many users do you know that actually pay attention to things that come into their emails?
0.
Yeah, not many. They're there to perform a function. They're not there to analyze the email that's being sent to them. That's sad but true. I'm not trying to say people are dumb. I'm trying to say that people have a very limited capacity outside of what they're good at.
Well, and
If you are
people are
not
busy.
if you're not security minded, you're not sitting there analyzing every little nuance of an email as it comes through. You got other things on your mind. You got other things to do. You're just trying to get through. So that's it. That's where the complication lies. That's why you have to have a multi-layered solution. But even more so, you have to have that end user training. If somebody's not security minded, give them the security training that they need. Give them that ability that they can not only save themselves, but save everybody else. There was a thing, and Mike, you'll get a kick out of this. Somebody was posting on my least favorite site in the world, Reddit, saying that they are worried that they're about to be terminated because they have failed 10 phishing simulations so
We love
far.
that.
They failed 6 in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, 6 in 2
It's a
weeks.
new high score.
They failed more after that, and they were told that if they fail another one, they will be terminated. And they said, well, I don't think it's fair because the emails are coming from HR at and sales at. It's like, the hell do you think the threat actors are going to do? They're not going to send it from this is phishing at pleasedon'tclickme.com. They're going to try and trick you. This person has proven that they are very trickable. They are a social engineer's dream because you could probably tell them that you have beachfront property in Arizona and they would take you up on it. So that's an example.
It's a good ethics conversation.
It really is.
It's a good ethics conversation because it really depends on where do you think the onus or the buck stops as far as securing the organization. Is it senior leadership, right? Or is it, whomever left the door open to the back of the restaurant that last night or whatever? You know what I mean? Like there's virtual and physical controls there, but it's a good conversation to be had. But one thing I think is an important point that hasn't come up yet is talk about return on investment. And we mean that. When you create security, there is a return on investment. You're getting time back, you're getting efficiency back. And let me explain for those that just think that's a platitude. If, let's say, scenario, users on average at your organization are getting 50 to 60 spam emails a day and 1 to 2 phishing emails a day. Not only are they having to monitor their email, legitimate, business-related, from customers and clients, from peers at the organization, but they're now having to also take time and brain power to filter and review what is legit, what is not, quarantine spam, quarantine phishing, if it's misclassified or not caught by Office 365, and it is commonly not caught by Office 365, right? Give credit where credit is due. Office 365 is feature rich. It is Swiss cheese when it comes to phishing emails right now with generative AI in the hands of threat actors. It is non-existent protection. And so without an SLA, mind you, in addition to that. And so one thing that I think is important to note is the number one thing, ironically enough, right? We're a cybersecurity company. We provide managed cybersecurity services focused on preemptive. The number one praise that our clients come back to us and our partners come back to us with is not at first they're getting less phishing, It's users are reporting a significant reduction in spam and noise in their inboxes. And so what does this mean? This means if the user was getting 120 emails a day and having to dedicate brain power to going through all of those, or not answer 20 of them, right? However they can enter, however many they can answer at the end of the day. Now we cut that into, let's say 60% of that, right? We'll go to 90 or 80 emails. That's a force multiplier when it comes to efficiency, right? There's less taking away from their focus. There's less productivity lost. There's less brain power and efficiency lost. And that's a real metric. That is a real metric. Users are reporting, hey, when Blockworks' suite and team is deployed, we see a lower quantity of spam, a lower volume of phishing, and thus, it's not like you can blindly trust your inbox. That's not what I'm saying. You should still have due diligence. But there is a force multiplier of efficiency that's added to that, where most would look at, cybersecurity is Matt said it really well last week on site, it's a cost center, right? There's no benefit that comes from this. I'm bleeding money. Like, there's no return on investment in my insurance. I'm just paying it. I'll never get that money back, right? But with actual preemptive security, you're getting efficiency, you're getting uptime, you're getting a lot less noise for users to deal with specific to email that you maybe don't see on network and endpoint security, candidly. So there is a point to be made, and it is something to consider for those who haven't thought about it already, is how much noise are your users having to generate because they've gotten burned by however many phishing simulations or however many failed tests, right? I'm all about educating the users, most definitely. But if there are things, as a business owner, if there are things taking away from the productivity of my staff, that's taking away from revenue, that's taking away from the ability to grow the business, and that's a threat to the business. And it ought to be treated like that.
No, I'm really glad that you brought that up because, even thinking of Matt's example, that poor innocent soul who fell for it 6+ times, you have to think how much time is he spending to check his emails on a daily after he got that warning. He's going to take his time, or
The
he
hypervigilance.
or she,
Yeah.
yeah, they're going to take their time and it's going to take them 10 times longer to go through their emails. That's time that could be spent somewhere else on productivity. So that's
Right.
a really great point. So I'm glad you brought that up. Well, to close this off for today, if you are an MSP or business owner, here's your action item for the week. Audit your email security. Seriously, sit down and ask yourself, what's blocking threats before they're delivered? What alerts you to suspicious activity or logins? Or does nothing? And what do your users do when they do see something suspicious? Do you have anything in place? If you don't like the answers, reach out to Blockworks. Email sales@blockworks.com and we'll walk you through a better approach. Mike, Matt, any other closing thoughts or must-do evaluations for this week for our MSPs or business owners? Some homework, so to speak.
Yeah, right along the lines, Elizabeth, that you pointed out, if there is anybody listening to this, again, live or after the fact, and you have some uncertainty over maybe what's getting through, we talked about the car wash. Where do you metaphorically put that in the way of security? Am I scanning email after delivery versus before? We have the ability to monitor any environment for 14 days at no cost to any customer or prospect or partner. And so if you're just saying, hey, I want a risk-free assessment, I just want to get a second set of eyes, second opinion, right? Go see another physician, another doctor, metaphorically speaking, and just get another perspective, another lens to look at this with. We do offer that, and that covers all traffic inbound for email, OneDrive, SharePoint, etc. Not just email, but even SaaS collaboration apps, because there could be, lo and behold, there could be risk being posed there as well. So if that is of interest, be sure to reach out to the medium that Elizabeth had mentioned. But yeah, couldn't hurt in checking.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. All right. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Safety Brief. But before we go, a few things you don't want to miss. We are proud to be a part of the Channel Days 2025, and trust me, they've got a lot of big surprises coming for MSPs who stop by. So give us a follow. Stay tuned for prize drops, security tips, and exclusive partner content. And also be sure to check your inbox. We've got an upcoming email security webinar that'll go even deeper into everything that we touched on today, with even some interaction elements as well. You won't want to miss these virtual events. Well, thanks again for listening to this episode of the Safety Brief. Until next time, stay preemptive.
Thanks all.